Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Litchfield Planning Board meeting of December 1st, 2020. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Looks like we have a full board. We have 7 people, so I don't think we need to appoint any alternates. We'll do with a roll call of members present. Michael Croto, Chair.
Kimberly Queen, Vice Chair.
Kevin Lynch, Selectmen's Rep.
Ron Stevens, member.
Josh Smith, member.
Kate Stevens, member.
James Buffetti, member.
Okay. And we have Jay with us this evening remotely. Good evening, Jay, from NRPC. And Joan McKibben, our planning board administrator, is actually on remote as well. Okay. First of all, this evening, public input on non-agenda items not on the agenda for this evening. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on non-agenda items at this time? Okay, hearing none, I will close public input on non-agenda items. Number 1 this evening, a subdivision application by Eugene Berg, map 5, lot 31, 294 Charles Bancroft Highway, subdivide 1 lot into 2 residential lots. If the aforementioned application is accepted, notice is hereby extended to application approval, consideration, and or continuations to a date certain as required. Do we have the applicant on remotely this evening? John has been trying to help assist them with trying to get on
There we go. You got the plan.
Okay. May take a few minutes, I guess.
Technology. Could use my phone. He can explain it if he sees it. Okay, the speaker.
Would it be better, do you think, if they could be reached by telephone or?
I'm gonna try. Hey, John, are you out there? No, let's do this again.
Mr. Chairman, if it's helpful, I could start by giving an overview of the plan. I don't know if that would be appropriate or not, but I could certainly do that.
Yeah, sure.
This is Kimberly Queen, and I'm going to have to recuse myself because I'm an abutter of the applicant of 288 Charles Bancroft Highway.
He's busy.
Okay. So yeah, why don't we do that? Jay, you can maybe begin. This
All right,
one.
I'll start, and if I say anything incorrectly, then hopefully the
Okay.
applicant can correct me.
Sure.
So overall, the property is a 9.2 acre site located on 3A. And so it abuts 3A in the front. If you can see my cursor, it abuts the Merrimack River to the rear. There's an existing house all the way on the back of the property, and there is a long driveway extending from 3A, going straight back to the house. And then there is a field that's located in the front, an agricultural field located in the front of the property. That's where the new lot is proposed. So what's proposed is a new lot that would be just over an acre in size, and I'm kind of going around. It's a little bit irregularly shaped, going around where the proposed lot is. Here you can see the proposed house. And essentially what is proposed is there is an existing curb cut here that serves the existing house. It's proposed that a section of that existing driveway and curb cut would be used to provide a driveway to the new house. The rest of that existing driveway to the rear of the proposed house would be taken up. There would be a new curb cut proposed right on 3A. It would go back skirting, I'll come back to this point, the conservation easement, where it would intersect with the existing driveway. And then that existing driveway, the rest of the access to the existing home would remain on that existing driveway, if that makes sense. So we're going to reuse essentially most of the existing driveway, but not all of it, and there will be a new curb cut. And I neglected to mention the conservation easement. So there is a significant conservation easement that bisects the property, and I'm going to outline it with my cursor. If you can see as I go, it goes all the way, wrapping around the existing house, running parallel to the river. And then on the northerly side, it comes from the riverside all the way down the property line, essentially down, following my cursor. And then at this point, it crosses over the new lot, over the driveway, and goes back down to 3A. So the existing driveway that's proposed will go right along the border of that conservation easement. I'm going to move down to the second sheet. On the second sheet, there's a little bit more detail. So what you can see is what, I'll back up again to one more point. The conservation easement is recorded on a plan, but we have apparently not been able to locate a document. So what the restrictions are within that conservation easement isn't memorialized somewhere that we can at least get our hands on right now. But what it does appear is that it's intended to protect an area surrounding this existing intermittent stream. And I'm going to follow, if you can follow my cursor, this is essentially the line of that existing stream, and it actually intersects the river at about this point. So essentially you've got a conservation easement, you've got an existing stream, one new house lot proposed. As you can see here, they are showing the required 4,000 square foot windows for the leach fields, as well as the required well radii. The property on the northerly side of the site is town owned, and that is the existing boat launch site. So that's the overall. The lot that's proposed is a conforming lot. We had several review comments you may have seen in the initial staff report. Those were communicated a couple of weeks ago to the applicant. So the plans that you're looking at now are the revised plans. And there's one small outstanding item, but beyond that, it does address all the review comments that were submitted. And then there's a few other issues of which we could certainly, discuss in greater detail.
Okay.
And I can go through some of those if you'd like.
Sure. John, how are you doing? Are you able to get with the applicant, I guess? If you
Love technology.
John, not there. Okay.
Call John.
Call 911. All right. Yeah. Okay, Jay. That's fine. If you want to just continue, that's fine.
All right. I think that probably the most significant issues, because again, this is just one lot into two, and there is no potential for further subdivision. So really, my biggest concerns were around the conservation easement, the stream, and the construction of the new sections of the driveway. As you can see on the plan, there is no, I'm wondering if I should zoom in a little bit. There is no definition of where the existing driveway would be retained and where new portions of the driveway would be constructed. You can discern that, but those aren't clearly shown on the plan. So when I spoke with the applicant earlier, he asserted, or the applicant's representative, I should say, that there would be no new driveway construction within the conservation easement. So I think, short of actually showing the limits of driveway construction on the plan, there at very least ought to be a condition on any approval and a note on the plan clarifying that there would be no construction within the conservation easement. The other issue was around erosion and sediment control. And I will say that's a requirement in our subdivision regulations. It's very common for us to waive that on minor subdivisions. In this case, my concern was that there was definitely going to be a new curb cut and new driveway construction right along the edge of the conservation easement. And there is a stream crossing, as you can see here, there's an existing culvert. So what I wanted to ensure is that there were erosion and sediment controls that would be in place. There has been, note has been added to the plan. A note has been added to the plan that states that those measures would be in place prior to construction of a driveway. And so again, I would suggest if the board were to move forward, that would be made a condition of the approval, that those would be in place, prior to any construction. And that's something that the building inspector could verify. So Michael, I have gone through your presentation. I'm not sure how much of it you heard or not. I shouldn't say I've gone through your presentation, but I did give an overview of the plan.
So maybe the applicant, I guess, is on now, can introduce himself to the board this evening.
I think he went back on.
You want to bye-bye again?
Michael, can you hear us?
Hello?
You live in London there, don't you? Yes. Can you hear us, Mike?
Good evening. Is he on mute?
Yeah, thank you guys.
Okay.
Thumbs up.
Can you hear us?
Used to know sign language.
Mr. Chair, just to interrupt 1 second. So Mike had a lot of troubles getting on with his.
Yep.
Based on what he sounds like, it sounds like he has a poor connection and it may not work for him
Okay.
at this point.
Can we
Do you think it's possible that he could try by phone?
He could. I will call him back and have him connect by phone.
Okay, why don't we do that? Maybe that'll be a little bit easier.
Hey, Mike, they're trying to call you. John's gonna call you now to get your phone number to call, okay? Because you'll be on the speakerphone,
Right.
okay? I can see your face. I know. You want to hear him?
Unbelievable.
Michael, say something.
Hello, Mr. Chairman? Kevin?
Oh,
Good evening.
Can you hear me a little bit?
I can hear you. I think you're on speakerphone. Can you hear me?
No, I'm not on speakerphone.
No, I'm not on speakerphone. I'm on
On the computer, I think.
the computer, I think.
Okay, because I know Kevin has his phone and I can hear something coming out of the WebEx, but
Are you on your phone, Mike?
I think I'm on Jay's phone right now.
try shut.
Sorry, Kevin, your communication with him is confusing it. So I'm trying to get him online, but you're on the phone with him.
I'm also, I shut off.
Okay, Mike, I'm going to call you back in 2 seconds.
Okay.
Well, just can't be this easy, could it?
It looks like, seems like it's just an audio thing.
Okay.
It's just breaking up his
He
microphone.
lives over Watts Road in London there. That's near the golf course.
Yeah.
Just as a point of view, the erosion control is part of the construction methods for all sites.
Mhm.
So it just said, no, erosion control to be used at all times. Put the note in the plan, that's all I ever would have done.
Mhm.
Until you get heavy rain and it all washes away.
That's what happens.
Maybe Jay can present the case. Silverware, you hear it?
Hello? Sorry, folks, we're having technical difficulties this evening.
The thrill of the meeting is coming to an end. Is there anything else we can talk about?
Well, you know what? Maybe we'll do this.
Until they get connected, we'll go to
Yeah,
something else.
Jay, maybe we can talk about number 2 this evening, which is the master plan work session. And if we get the applicant on board, then we'll switch to that, and so that we can keep things going, I guess, if that works.
Sure. So really, with the master plan, not a whole lot. I don't really have anything in terms of presentation. I've started working on updating some of the information. On the site, I put up a copy of the 2002 community facilities chapter. That's just there for reference. And I also put up the comments for the survey. So just as a reminder, since we were updating the CIP and we were looking to do the community, update the community facilities chapter of the master plan, and that was happening, pretty much concurrently, we decided to do a survey on capital improvement needs. So, and I think we had sent out the full version of that, the results of that, and I could do that again for everyone. The document that I put up was just the comments. And the reason I did that was, although there's 50 pages of them, sorry about that. I don't expect everybody to go through it, was I found a lot of them to be really very interesting. Just overall, we had over 600 people respond to that survey, and that's really quite good. When you think about the number of adults or voters in Litchfield, that's a pretty significant percentage. So overall, I felt good about that. Importantly, the CIP was looking at a 6-year time frame, and it was really focused on dollars. So each of the improvements that were talked about had a dollar amount associated with them and a year for implementing that. And that definitely impacts how people respond. The master plan has a longer horizon that we're looking at. We are looking at 6 years, but we're looking out beyond that as well. And we're not really going to focus so much on the cost of a proposal or the exact year that it's going to be implemented. So just to kind of clarify, there's definitely differences between the CIP and the master plan. They ought to be in harmony, but there are different levels of detail and different information provided. So what that does is it frees us a little bit to focus more heavily on what we think are wants and needs, and not to say that, we don't want to care about cost, but typically in the master plan, we don't attach costs to the project. So that's less of an issue for us. So the focus is on needs, standards that are necessary to meet the existing population of Litchfield and the population that we project. And that projected population will be looking mainly at the population projections that we have in the population and housing section of the master plan, which is fairly recent. But we'll add to that somewhat using the Office of State Planning population projections. We'll also be looking at the most recent enrollment projections when it comes to school improvements. We'll include that information. There's a lot of very detailed information around number of employees and square feet of, this facility or that facility or linear feet of shelving, et cetera. My inclination is maybe to not be quite as detailed with those kinds of things. I mean, we'll definitely be updating data, but that's, I'm not sure that some of that information is really master planning. It's more reporting. So just some overall thoughts. And then I thought I would share some things that I thought really jumped out at me, and then see if we can get a sense of the board as to whether these are things that we should be diving into deeper, taking a look at more strongly. So first of all, when it comes to the comments that we received in the survey, there was, well, I'll back up just a little bit. The only proposed facilities in that survey that got majority support and also was strongly supported in the comments that we received was building a new, replacing Griffin Memorial School. And that also turns out to be a top CIP priority. And not surprisingly, I think more than likely, I would have to imagine the plan that was laid out in the CIP, which is replace Griffin Memorial School and then make improvements, mainly systems improvements to Campbell High School and the middle school. That just seems like the logical plan. I think when you look at the enrollment projections, we're seeing falling enrollment, and it just makes sense. We're replacing a facility that needs to be replaced because of condition issues and making upgrades that need to be made to the existing facility. It's less about accommodating new growth, although maybe we will see some, but it's mostly on focusing on improving the ability to serve the existing residents and students. So I think, to me, that just jumps out as pretty clear. The other area, and I guess it surprised me somewhat, but when I looked at the comments, there were a lot of comments focused on recreational issues. One of the things that really jumped up, and I'd like to take a deeper dive into, was Darrell Pond. Many comments about people remembering when they were able to swim there, when they were able to take their kids there, and wouldn't it be great if we could do that again? Obviously, there's environmental issues around that, eutrophication of the pond, but I think that's something that's really worth taking a look at. Is it possible to bring that pond back as a resource, for people, to actually have a town beach there? So that seems to make sense. Another one that comes up a lot, and I know that this has come up in the past, but Talent Hall came up a lot. Both the need for improvements to it for the existing building and its condition, as well as a lot of people's thoughts about how it could be used or how it should be used. There were a lot of comments. Again, I know this has been an older issue, but around a community center, should it just be basketball? Can't we have more? Aren't there other activities? So it seemed like those were issues that made sense to explore. A lot of comment. This is really not community facilities. We raised this in the transportation chapter. We did include a recommendation on putting in that sidewalk or multi-use path along Pinecrest to connect the existing sidewalk from the schools to Albuquerque. But interestingly, that came up a lot in this survey. And so I thought it was interesting. It just kind of underscored to me the value of identifying that, as an improvement. And then there were some other ones, lack of parking at, Brickyard at the fields, that came up. a number of times. And then again, rehashing issues, I guess, that have been spoken of before, but the desire to put in some sort of motorized boat access to the river. Whether we want to explore that or not, I don't know, but that's, that's one of the things that came up. So again, I found that all, very interesting. Other things I think that came up during the CIP that we definitely want to address. However, we want to, deal with them. Another high priority was police station, constructing a new police station. I will say in the survey, there wasn't a whole lot of support around that. And I think that was very much a cost issue. But at least on the need side, I think it's, important to talk about that. The other issue that did not get much support at all, but from the need front, maybe I think it's probably, again, something we should address in the master plan, which is the library. And, do we want, we should address it. Whether we make a recommendation, I think is a different issue. So I think it's worth doing a deeper dive into what really, based on current standards and norms, what size library, is appropriate for Litchfield, and what makes sense in terms of what that facility looks like, in the 21st century, in the area that we're in now. And we know that looks different. And we've heard a lot of comments around that. Do you really need a library, in the internet age? Obviously a librarian would tell you why, but I think those are issues that are make sense to explore. And, another theme that came up a lot was the desire for some sort of town center, town square, or town green. That came up in a lot of people's comments, a place to gather. Some, people definitely identified the site where town hall is now. Others didn't identify a site, they just expressed a desire to have something like that. So what some of these issues to me suggest is, and I put a request out, and anybody else who knows, as I understand it, years ago, before the new town hall was built, there was a concept plan for how that area, the area could accommodate multiple different functions. So I'd love to get my hands on that and see if that's something we could explore. But I think the idea of looking at, is it possible to accommodate an expanded police station, the existing town hall, perhaps a new library, perhaps some sort of town green or common on this site? I think it's worth exploring. So that's kind of another theme, I think, that is really worth diving into in the master plan. And then finally, and this is a easier one, I think in some ways, but in looking at identifying priority conservation lands, or at least identifying, if not specific properties, kind of what are the kinds of sites that would be a priority. So that was kind of my list of issues and topics that I think, it really makes sense to dive into more deeply. We may also want to look at, do we think that there are other uses that we should explore for things like the old town hall and the old fire station on 3A. So those could be things that we explore as well. So that's kind of my list. I'm certainly open to thoughts, but I think if those things make sense, I'd like to start doing a little bit more research and doing a deeper dive, and then start coming up with some things, to present to the board.
Okay, Kevin.
Jay, on the master plan for this site that we're in now, town hall, police, fire, I was on the committees back in the day when I was once younger. Okay, and there is layout with the library, fire, police, and a common area out there where the gazebo is now. Those plans. Joan asked me to find them. I could not find them here. I think they're in the storage building down near the cable group, because there's storage records of there. Roland had them all there. So I'm going to go in there to look to get them for Joan. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Very good.
If you need help, let me know. I can move boxes.
Oh, no, I'm fine. Thank you. I'm taking coffee too.
There you go. Okay, thank you, Jay. So I guess for this portion, you looking to do some sort of a draft and then the board can review it, or how do you want to proceed?
Yeah, I think what I'd like to do is if these kind of topics and issue areas make sense to everybody, if there's some consensus around that, then what I'd like to do is do a deeper dive into each of these. So each of these types of facilities, there usually are standards that kind of govern how big, how much. So I would like to pull together that information and then pull together some ideas on how we could accommodate them. So yes, I will start to do some research and then, come back to the board and, present some of the findings. And then, if kind of there's consensus around them, then we'll move forward with the draft chapter that the board can review.
Okay. And I mean, if the board has anything that they think, should be included in the plan, or the facilities chapter,
Right.
reach out to Jay or Joan and let them know. And
Yeah, absolutely. If there's anything else out there,
just want to
as I
see.
said, I know that some of these issues have been discussed in the past, and so there may be more material out there that I'm not aware of.
I think you hit the big highlights. The town center was certainly something. The
Sidewalk.
school, conservation land, those types of things are important. So,
Jay, this is Kate.
Okay.
I noticed there was a common theme in some of the issues, I guess, between these, like the comments that people have said about the facilities that we have, and that we don't really have a common meeting area or space anymore. And it was my understanding there was supposed to be one in the fire station, and I understand why it wouldn't be open right now. But I also heard that it's actually not very big. It's not like Talent Hall or something where it can really accommodate a good amount of people. And then the rec committee doesn't seem to open up Talent Hall for anything other than like sporting things, or things that they deem as like recreation. So there's not really a place where a town committee or something can meet, unless there's, only a small amount of people. So I don't know that we need to make a recommendation on it, but maybe just that it's a noticed issue where, if a new library is built, maybe it has space for that. If the police station is expanded, maybe we save space for that. That way, maybe Talent Hall is updated to make that a little more accommodating. I don't know what the answer is. I just know that seemed to be a hole in what our community facilities offer right now.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That's definitely something else that we can look into. I'll add that to the list.
There's another side to that too. You talk about the schools, Griffin School, is a big item on the list. Replace that with that school. There's your community center. Okay, it already exists.
So maybe the schools just need to have a better understanding that we can use the schools for more functions. With
Right.
schools nowadays are so locked down, they don't want any strangers
Right now,
on the
we can't do
property.
anything. We can't do anything.
Right.
COVID is taking.
Not because of COVID, but because of security issues.
Yep.
So I don't know if that's still a possibility or not, and just people haven't reached out. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we've heard the similar comments about the library. Why can't we just use a library at the schools? And that's also the answer. It's, general public access to the schools is challenging. But yeah, definitely. We'll put that on the list.
Thanks.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Jay. Appreciate all the work that you do on that. And we'll be looking forward to a draft and hopefully get working on that. Thank you. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Jay before I move on? Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back to number 1, the subdivision application. Is the applicant able to hear us, or is the applicant on the?
Yes, I can hear you guys.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Can you introduce yourselves to the board this evening?
Yep, I'm Mike Granger, Granger Engineering in Hudson, New Hampshire.
Okay,
I'm a licensed land surveyor and a professional engineer.
thank you. So Jay gave us sort of an overview before you came on about the project and what he saw as concerns and so forth. Before I let you speak to the project, what I'm going to do is, as we do in these planning board meetings, we have to do a motion to accept this application as it is presented. My understanding is, and Joan can correct me, that all abutters have been notified, all fees have been paid, and we do have all of the required documents submitted for this application this evening. Is that correct, Joan?
That's correct.
Okay. Jay, you would agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. So before we go into a deeper dive into the application process or the site plan, the subdivision process, we're going to do an acceptance of the application for completeness. This is a paper exercise. It's more of to make sure that the application is complete as terms of the procedures that have been followed by the applicant to get it to the planning board. I'm going to ask at this time, I'm going to ask the applicant, do you believe there's any regional impact to this project? And you can either say yes or no.
No.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So we have all the fees paid, all the abutters have been notified. There's no regional impact. We have all of the required documentation. So at this time, I would entertain a motion from the board to accept the application.
I'll make a motion to accept the application.
Okay, I have a motion to accept. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a second. Mr. Buffetti. Do I have any discussion? All right, all those in favor of acceptance of this application, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 6-0-0. Okay. So the application has been accepted. So at this time, I'm going to ask the applicant, go back to the applicant. I'm going to ask the applicant to maybe provide us with a brief overview of this project and what they are proposing to do. So I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Yep. All right. Again, my name is Michael Granger. Hired by the Birds, Margaret and Eugene, to subdivide one lot, roughly an acre, in the front for their kids. They want to build a house there. So instead of buying something somewhere else in town, they said, we have 9 acres. Let's subdivide.
I just want to make sure, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Can everybody hear Mr. Granger?
Yes.
All right, I know. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure. All right. Continue. I'm sorry.
Yep, no problem. So I don't know if you know the history of this property, but I surveyed it in 1987 for George Coley and subdivided this parcel off the town parcel for his son. He built the house, lived there for how many years? The Birds purchased it. So we decided to cut off an acre in the front where they wanted it, that corner. You still hear me?
I can hear you.
Hello?
Hello?
Okay, I heard.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Voice and it seemed like it was breaking up. But, so I cut off roughly 1 acre in the front where their existing driveway is. And we're going to use that existing driveway for the new house. And we're proposing a second driveway 100 feet south of that to go to the existing house in back. We've met with the DOT. We've applied for it, and they're in the process of approving it. He just said it was going to take some time. Brian from DOT came down, looked at the site. He was very familiar with it. He did the town driveway also, so he knew right where we were, and he looked at it and basically will approve it. We've also gone to DES and got the subdivision approval, which is sheet 2 of this package. So we have that approval. The only thing I haven't done yet is the individual septic design. And that I'm working on now. We've done the test pits, obviously, and we'll go from there. It's going to have a well in the back. The septic system will be in the front. The well will be in the back. We're not planning on cutting any trees at all. It's an open field, and the well will be right up towards the edge of the trees in that area. But we're not going to cut any additional trees. The second driveway that we're proposing is going to run up the side of the conservation easement or conservation land, the buffer area, but we'll make sure we stay out of the conservation easement for that second driveway that we propose. I think that's about it. Any questions? Let me know.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for the?
If none. It's a simple subdivision.
Jay, is there anything that you wanted to add?
Not a whole lot. We chatted about some of the issues sooner. I think what the applicant has stated is that there would be no construction within the conservation easement. I believe that's correct. And so that I assume that Mr. Granger, that means that the portion of the existing driveway within the conservation easement would remain. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, we're going to tie that's already paved. We'll just tie back into that.
Right. That was my assumption. And so I think it's important that that's, if the board were to move forward, that could be a condition of approval. I think, as I also noted, a note was added to the plan that erosion and sediment controls will be in place prior to construction of the driveway. So that is a note on the plan. And that's something that I believe the building inspector could confirm, prior to the issuance of a permit. And otherwise, another condition of approval would be if the board were so inclined to, receipt of the state driveway permit.
Okay.
So those are really the outstanding issues.
Okay.
There's really nothing there.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay.
One question, and being a past inspector, I didn't like to have construction start until after the building permit was issued. That includes erosion control. So I like to have, this is what I used to do. I'm just saying, okay, once you get your permit, you can start construction. So you don't put the erosion control in before you start construction, before you get your permit. That's a basic rule of thumb.
Okay.
Okay?
So would you like to make that, if we were to approve it,
Yeah.
as a condition to
Yeah.
the approval?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, it's plowed ground anyhow. We're going to disturb it.
So you want the erosion control for the second driveway put in and maintained before we start the construction of the house?
If that's where the driveway, you can build a house without that driveway in there. You can come off the other driveway now. Okay, but when you go to
Right.
construct the new driveway, you want your erosion control in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay?
Yep.
Question about the conservation easement. So did I understand you to say that you haven't found there's no document in the registry or anything that describes or
I couldn't find.
pertains to the
That's correct.
conservation easement?
I couldn't find a deed issued by, let's say, George Colby to the town of Litchfield for that conservation easement. And back in 1987, on a lot of these plans, basically, if we drew a conservation easement or a drainage easement on a plan and the plan got recorded, that's basically what they held their hat to.
That was the document.
They didn't write them in the deed just for the conservation easement back then. Now we do. We write drainage easements, conservation easements, but back then, they didn't do that.
Okay,
Common practice back in the day.
yeah.
Wasn't it? Yeah,
Common practice back in the day, Mike.
yep. And that's why I couldn't find it.
Okay. Jay, do you think it would be, I mean, just to maybe note that as something as a note on the plan or something about that, or
We certainly could. That could be added as a note.
just
you know,
to
no deed on
clarify
file.
it? I mean, so that, you know, just putting everybody on notice, I guess.
No construction in easement.
I know, you know, nowadays it's, you know, common to have that as in writing, but I guess that's something that at the time,
Not
that's
unusual.
the case, of course. Okay. Is this, did I see that this is in an aquifer protection district? Something about an aquifer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this property basically has all of the overlay districts at play. It's aquifer, it's got wetland, conservation district, and it's in the shoreline protection district as well. A portion of the property is, and you can see the 250-foot shoreline buffer is here. There is no construction proposed within the shoreline area. There's also floodplain, 100-year floodplain comes into the property. Roughly, it's like a finger coming from the riverfront like that. It's denoted on the plans as well. So every overlay district we have, I think comes into play here.
Okay. Joan, I know you're on the Conservation Commission as the chair. Did you want to make any comment? Anything that strikes
Yes, I
you
do.
or?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, because I'm on the phone. Yes, the Conservation Commission would like to see a vegetated buffer between the subdivision lot and the town property. Something that would be agreeable to both the commission and the Bergs to screen the yard of the house.
I don't know if the applicant wants to comment on that or what your sense of that is.
I did speak to the Bergs about that, and they had no problem with planting a row of trees, basically, on their property line or 5 feet off of it, that would buffer that backyard. Correct.
Try to be native trees or something, not arborvitae and not white pine, but maybe some
That's
native
correct.
shrubbery.
That's correct. Native species.
Thanks. Thanks.
White pine is a native tree.
Yes, it is.
You know what I mean?
It's not Arbor Day yet. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Anything that,
I have no problem.
you have no issues with it?
Not at all.
Okay, all right.
It's so simple.
Kate, Jim, do you have any questions? Anybody? Okay.
We can't hear you, sir. Jim?
Oh, is he on mute?
His lips are moving.
Oh, okay.
He is
Oh.
muted.
Oh, does he, okay, is there a way to unmute him or? Jim?
I don't know if he's intentionally, I don't know if he's muted himself or he's been muted.
So he's all set.
It was locked.
He's
for a
all
second.
set? Oh, okay, all right.
We
Just want to make sure.
got sidelined with language.
Okay, is that better? Now, I was.
better. I can hear you.
I couldn't get unmuted.
It's okay, that's all right.
No, I'm fine. I have no questions.
Okay,
Thank you,
all right,
Jim.
thank you.
I did have a couple,
Okay.
or we ran into this on the Firefly Lane subdivision where the frontage on Charles Bancroft has to be more than 150 feet. Do you remember that?
Yeah, so this is Jay jumping in. I went down that road also. That was one of the comments that I had initially. And then after talking to town staff, it appears that that interpretation wasn't correct. That applies only to lots in the commercial districts.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense, because then I was finding other places where the driveways had to be 300 feet apart, which just doesn't make sense with the 200-foot frontage either, so.
I was in the same place. I'd reached the same conclusion and then realized, that if you look at the way the table of dimensional requirements is structured, it's only commercial districts.
Okay, thank you. My other question was on the irregular shaped lot, if they needed a waiver for that or not. I was trying to do the calculation on there and I must be doing it wrong because I'm getting a number that is way smaller than 0.4. I don't know if you looked at that piece. It's number 415 in the subdivision regulations on page 12.
I thought the law complied, but I think the applicant might be able to address that while I grab my regs.
I didn't look at that regulation between Joan and I, but we had to make the irregular lot shape to be able to get that second driveway in and to get the area because of that conservation easement.
Okay, I can understand that. I just didn't know if we needed to have a waiver or not in writing. Or we're just able to approve it as it is.
Yeah, you guys need to get one down to Joan tomorrow.
Sorry, you cut out. Would you repeat that?
Yeah, I didn't hear that. Sorry.
If you need a waiver, I can get that down to Joan tomorrow in writing.
Okay.
Why would you need it? You can't change the law because he went around the Brookside. It's not irregular. He just followed through the line.
Mhm.
This is not creating a regular law for somebody else. You can't do anything on the other side.
And so this is Jay jumping in. I think it meets the requirement, but there's a calculation involved that I would have to do. It may be safer to request the waiver just in case and make that a condition if that's the pleasure of the board.
I mean, I don't see, sure, if you want to do that. Just as, to make in case there is an issue, you might want to just have it available to do that. But maybe, Jay, if you want to do that calculation and then maybe if we find that, he's going to need a waiver, then we can probably address it.
The condition is, in addition to the calculation, what the regulation states is it prohibits unusually shaped lots that are solely to satisfy minimum area requirements. So that's certainly arguable in this case. And then, there is a calculation involved that, I would have to do to determine whether this satisfies the requirements or not.
Okay.
I'm wondering if the way that it's written in the regulations isn't right, because I can't seem to get it anywhere close to 0.4, going by how it's written. It might just be going, trying to write out an equation in text. I might have lost something there.
I'm struggling with that right now also, which is why I don't want to attempt to do it on the fly, because I'm struggling to make it work.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's,
You can
what
go back and follow up on that.
probably what we can do is,
Prove it with condition of that being followed through.
yeah, if you can make it a condition, probably of approval, that, you can do in the interim, we will have a calculation done. If we find that, if the finding of that calculation says that there's a waiver requirement, then we would have to have the applicant issue that waiver and then basically a vote to approve it.
Right, subject to a waiver request if necessary.
Right,
That's
exactly.
correct.
So I don't think that's, doesn't sound like a big deal.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
But good catch.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Okay. At this time, I'll open it up to public input. Is there any members of the public that wish to comment on this subdivision?
Mr. Chair, there are no other members of the public joining.
No members of the public joining. Okay. All right. Hearing none, I will close public input and I'll bring it back to the board. What does the board want to do? We can certainly conditionally approve this. I had one question. Did this, I noticed that it wasn't checked off on the plan review, but I was just curious. Is this in the quarter mile of the Merrimack River? Is this project in the quarter mile?
No.
The reason I ask is,
Yes, it is.
Okay.
This property abuts the Merrimack River.
yeah,
The whole property.
is there a reason? Well, I think I know what the reason is because you're not doing anything with the shoreline protection
That's right.
piece. So therefore it wouldn't necessarily apply to Lower Merrimack River Local Advisory Committee. Is that?
Yeah, there's no construction activity or, and the new, within the buffer, within the 250-foot setback area, and also the lot itself is outside of the shoreline.
Okay. All right. Okay. Normally, with if there's anything that's being built within that quarter mile, usually the Lower Merrimack is notified, but usually that I think has to apply to if there's going to be like an alteration of terrain permit or a shoreland application permit.
The whole property is definitely within the quarter mile.
Yeah. Okay. I just didn't know if it would be appropriate to let the Lower Merrimack River Local Advisory Committee know that this project is, sometimes they do have an interest only because it does fall within their purview. And even though it may not necessarily be on the radar because there's no shoreline protection application or alteration of terrain. That's why I was just asking, that's all.
Right. If they weren't notified, and it's appropriate to do so, then what we would probably need to do is notify them and give them the opportunity to comment, and that would necessitate continuing the application to another agenda.
Yeah. I'm inclined to go that route only because just to make sure that they know that this is on the radar. But that's just me.
if that were the pleasure of the board, that would also provide an opportunity for us to do the calculation on the lot, on the irregular lot, and to perhaps add a buffer area to the plan.
That would make sense. And then at that point, we will know what the calculation is, and then we could just approve it, and with the waiver, if there was a waiver request. That makes sense.
Could you explain something on that quarter mile?
Mhm.
What regulatory authority do they have to say you can't do anything in your own land? Other than it's the town zoning?
Well, I don't think it's that they can't do anything on their own land. It's just that under the statute, the Lower Merrimack River Local Advisory Committee it's part of the Rivers Management Program. So any projects that were within that corridor would basically trigger them to just have an opportunity to comment. They're an advisory board, but it's just, sometimes these projects, the small projects in the towns, they don't get on the radar of the Lower Merrimack. Usually it's the ones that go through DES. If there's a shoreline, like I said, if there's an application of terrain permit or a shoreline protection permit. But I think it's always good to at least have them provide some sort of input. Sometimes they'll say, we don't have any comments and we're not really going to comment on it. We don't really have anything to say about it. And that's fine. I just want to make sure that, they have an opportunity
We've
to.
already got the 250-foot setbacks. Already on the red. We're not even in that area. That's what I'm saying. That's all
Yeah,
that's
no.
what I'm saying.
And like I was saying, it's just a matter of, out of courtesy, fairness, if you want to say, just to let, because sometimes, they have an interest, they may have an interest in saying, oh, okay, this is something that's within the Merrimack River corridor, and that's what would trigger it. But it might be an opportunity, like, Jay said, he can do that calculation. Even if we continue it tonight to a date certain, then he can come back and tell us whether it meets that calculation. If it needs a waiver, at that point we will know. And then if the Merrimack River Local Advisory Committee comments or not, then we'll know. And then essentially we can just vote on it.
Okay.
So it's just,
Just ask the question.
no, that's just my 2 cents. But
Damn, that pool area.
how does the members of the board think that's a
Yes.
reasonable approach?
I do.
Okay. So what I can do is,
Improve it conditionally.
we can move to continue this hearing tonight, to probably maybe even next meeting. If that would give you enough time. I'm sure it would give you enough time, Jay, right? You wouldn't.
Michael, too.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm off screen trying to do the calculation right now. So sorry. for
All
that.
right, okay. So we could do that to a date certain, and then once we come back and know that actual calculation, then we'll know for sure whether it meets the requirement. And if they need to have a waiver, they can present that waiver, and then we can vote on it, and then we'll just vote on the conditional approval of everything here. And it'll just make it so that we have everything, all the ducks in a row. And,
Next meeting will
the third Tuesday
15th, isn't it?
is the 15th, I think
be
you're
right
right.
before
Yes.
Good.
So the 15th of December at 7 PM.
we can do it.
So now, would the applicant be fine with that if we did that? Just to make sure that we have everything we need?
Mike, can you hear us?
Yeah, if that's what you guys want to do.
Okay.
Okay, all right. So we'll reach out to the Lower Merrimack Local River Advisory Committee. We'll see if they have anything that they want to add. It's not a major, like you said, it's not a major subdivision plan. So I don't think there's going to be a lot. They may not even comment at all, to be honest. But I just want to make sure that they get the opportunity to know that this is on the radar. And then Jay can do his calculation. And if you need to provide a waiver at that point, you can come back on the 15th. You can present that waiver if you have to. If you don't, then you're all set. If you do have to present it, then the board can review it and vote on it, and then we'll conditionally approve the project at that point. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Okay. So with that said, I would, at this time, entertain a motion to continue this here, this subdivision plan
December 15th.
to December 15th at 7 p.m. And at that point, we'll know whether we have we need a waiver or not.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Do I have discussion? Okay. All those in favor of the continuance to a date certain, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 600. Thanking the applicant for coming or being on remotely this evening. I'm sorry with all the technical difficulties that you had to get through to try to get in here, but certainly we will be back on the 15th and we'll see you then. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully.
All right. Okay, moving on, committee reports. And we'll start with Kim. Do you have anything for us in NRPC or?
Let's see.
I
She
do.
wrote on the back.
Get my glasses. The NRPC meeting, quarterly meeting will be held on December 16th at 7 p.m. It'll be a hybrid or remote meeting. It's open to the public. It's at 30 Temple Street in Nashua, and you can go to their website and find the link for the meeting there. The Heritage Commission, there's nothing to report. The next meeting is on December 8th at 7 p.m., and that meeting is remote.
And what was, again, I'm sorry, the date for the Regional Planning Commission?
Regional Planning Commission is
16th.
December
16th,
16th.
Wednesday, the 16th. Got it. Thank you. Okay. Conservation meets at 7. Joan, do we have a meeting place?
We're going to be December 7th at Town Hall.
Okay, so it'll be December. Yeah, it won't be Thursday. It's going to be the following week because of.
Is it going to be outside?
Bring your marshmallows. We'll have a fire. Toast them. Yeah, no, it'll be inside in Town Hall. The Lower Merrimack Local Advisory Committee meeting, speaking of them, they are meeting actually December 10th, which is,
Good week.
there you go. And that's going to be remotely. And I think that's it for me for committee reports. Okay. Approval of the minutes of the 11/17/2020 meeting. Did everybody have an opportunity to look at those? Have any questions, concerns?
I did not.
Okay. You want to take just a minute or a few minutes to?
I don't have a copy.
Oh, you don't have a copy. Okay.
Joan can't send stuff to me. She says machine doesn't like to send
Yeah,
it to
I
me.
don't have enough stamps, Kevin.
November
I meant
17th.
by electronic. Your skills are.
Did you want to take a look?
You
Here.
want to see it?
No. Not tonight.
Can you read it?
Mike,
Who was
Mike,
it?
who seconded the previous motion?
Ron.
Ron.
Thank you.
Yep.
No, I read them already. They were posted. There wasn't much to it.
Okay. Okay. If there's any, if there's nothing there that anybody has any concerns with, I mean, an entertain a motion to approve them.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes
Okay.
of November 17th, 2020.
All right. Motion to approve November 17, 2020 minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Ron. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained. Motion passes 7-0-0. Thank you. Okay. Any other business this evening? Joan, do you have anything for any other business?
No, I don't.
Okay. Jay, do you have anything?
Just want to mention that it's getting to be that time of year. So far, we have one zoning change that we've discussed, which were the amendments to the open space ordinance. So if there is anything else on anybody's mind, now's the time we're going to have to address them, because we really should be, I don't have all the deadlines in front of me, but we should be looking to vote to put things to a first public hearing, either at the next meeting or the meeting after that.
Okay.
Jay, can we talk about the things that you had said about Amherst and affordable housing?
Sure.
Let's see, where was it? I think I accidentally closed the presentation.
Oh, I can probably find it.
My biggest question was that, oh, here it is. Like these housing developments in Amherst, did Amherst end up like providing any incentives for building these types of homes, or change any zoning to make them possible?
They did. So, just backing up a little, Amherst has a 2-acre minimum zoning requirement. And so they provided density bonuses basically to allow this to happen. They did this in a couple of ways. So first of all, they have a workforce housing ordinance. And that ordinance allows you to, and I can share that with everyone also, it has a formula that allows you to basically get a density bonus for providing workforce housing. And there's some different standards in there as to how they can do that.
When you say, sorry, when you say bonus, do you mean some kind of tax break or break in the fees or something?
No, they're allowed to build more homes on the property than they would otherwise. So they're allowing them extra units.
Okay, so they're making, that bonus is that more units are available to sell.
That's right. So that's the bonus essentially. And of course there's some requirements that go with that. There are some different calculations. They have, Amherst regulations are fairly complicated and they've changed. So that's, kind of the framework. So you have a workforce housing ordinance. They also had a PRD ordinance. They had an elderly housing overlay. And all of those involve different calculations. And then they had something called, now the name has escaped me. I want to call it hospice. But essentially what it was a kind of umbrella ordinance that gave the planning board a great deal of flexibility in addressing open space developments, PRDs, or workforce housing. So they funneled all of their kind of different types of applications through this ordinance. That ordinance was repealed at the last town meeting.
Okay.
So I don't know whether you can still do the examples that we saw in Amherst today.
Okay.
I'm not saying you can't. I don't know if you can, given the repeal of that ordinance. But nevertheless, what you saw was what at least was allowed until recently. And to your point, the main benefit they're providing is allowing more units. They're not providing any kind of financial incentive, and they're not providing any kind of a tax break.
The ADU
Okay.
is a separate function all by itself. Density housing, well, whether it's workforce or subdivision changes, stuff like that, that's a planning structure. But an ADU is a whole separate thing the state allows all through the state. Okay? Each town is given it a different size. Some towns, they allow it to be attached or detached, like above a garage.
Mhm.
Okay? We don't do it here. It has to be attached. Okay? That's all that refers to. There's nothing to do with densities or anything like that. Okay? And just tell you what it is here and what it is out in the outside world too. Okay? And Amherst, I had that question asked a couple years ago with theirs. So that's part of the game. Okay? The whole different thing. That was my opinion. I'm done.
Jay, I have a question. Do you have any clue as to how much it would cost someone that wanted to move into one of those units?
The units at Amherst?
Yes.
I'm honestly not sure. I would have to check. My understanding is that there was at one point an intent to put a deed restriction guaranteeing affordability, and I don't believe that happened.
Okay.
No.
So I don't know that there's any, I don't know how well the affordability aspect of those survived. To some extent, it's going to be market driven. They're almost certainly, just based on looking at them, going to be less expensive than a home on 2 acres or 5 acres, freestanding. But I don't believe there was any long-term affordability requirement that worked its way into a deed restriction. I could be wrong on that, but that's my understanding.
The only way that I know that works is there's federal money involved. Okay, then that goes with a deed restriction all the way through, because it can be kept affordable.
I was just trying to define what
And here is not
affordability might be.
I know.
Oh, that we can actually do. I don't have that at the tip of my fingers now, but we can actually define what that is and what that is specifically for Litchfield. So if that's of interest, I can tell you what those thresholds would be at the next meeting.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Would be great. Yeah, it looks like in our ordinances, a couple of low hanging fruit, I guess. Well, I don't know if you want to call it that, because I don't know will of the board about whether this is even something we want to entertain. But there were a couple of things like expanding the multifamily overlay district, adjusting obviously minimum lot sizes. What were the other ones I said? And then, as Kevin brought up, accessory dwelling units, things like allowing them to be separate from the main building. The maximum square footage on those right now is only 800 square feet. Gross living area above the ground. It's required to have an internal door to the primary dwelling and use the same house number. That we might be able to relax some of those to make it easier for people to find more affordable housing in the area. I don't know if any of you have any interest in putting forward something like that at the next town meeting or not.
I have interest in doing something like that. I'll be honest with you. This town, you can't afford a house in this town if you're just starting to get going. We had homes
Absolutely.
for $400,000. They're only built for 110. Okay, you know what I'm saying?
I've heard 400,000 is considered affordable.
Yeah, I know. That's
what I was
the
trying
odd
to
way.
get at.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think it was 400,000 was considered affordable because that's how much because of how much the land costs. So if we reduce the minimum lot size, that number might go down
So you're
to
saying,
incentivize developers to build on small, like because an acre of land costs so much money that then you can just build, no matter what size of house you build on it, it's going to cost at least like 250, 300 grand just for that acre of land.
You're just going, so you're looking at decreasing the density of land, okay? Because you got it in your subdivision now, with your PRDs, where you plan the residential development, you can put frontage 75 feet on a half acre of land, but you got more open space. But that cost is still associated with the house, because they got the other land is not being, they give it to the town, but your road costs are down, your site work is down. You know, there's so many ways of doing it.
Right.
But your PRD, you plan the residential development, because if you get town water, you have to worry about the well thing. So you put it less than 20,000 square feet, even less.
Right.
That we done on Nessenkeg and Tacoma, right? The intersection right there, and then Nessenkeg. So we haven't sent.
Well, we could certainly, put these on the agenda for the next meeting and come up with some examples. The low hanging fruit, or the lowest on that list, is certainly detached accessory dwelling units.
Yep.
We could look at any of these.
All right, well then, maybe we can do that then, and go explore that a little bit more.
Yeah, we can put a zoning ordinance workshop on the next agenda.
That sounds like a good idea, sure. Okay,
Thank you, Jay.
Absolutely.
okay.
Come in, Jay.
What?
Right.
All right. I have correspondence on the agenda. I don't, has anybody been watching the Hudson Planning Board meetings? I
That was
missed
my
the
next,
last one.
I was hoping we were going to talk about that.
Just curious to see how that went. I know they were talking about what was it? Traffic study impacts and all that sort of thing.
Well, they didn't have much going on because they had a member they had to get off.
Right, and I remember that was the meeting I went to, actually.
So
And
I
it
did-
was kind of short-lived.
It was
Yeah.
short-lived, okay?
But-
Haven't heard anything since.
Yeah.
I did watch most of that. I didn't catch the last half hour of it, but
Okay.
I did watch most of that last traffic meeting. And my notes or my thoughts from it was, at least as far as Litchfield's concerned, the biggest thing is that as of right now, the applicant does not anticipate any traffic from Manchester Airport. And I think as a town, we need to request to the Hudson Planning Board that they put a condition of approval that if that changes, that goes back for review, because that will drastically change our abutter experience.
Mhm.
I think, because if you Google map it, it's roughly the same amount of time. It's like within 5 or 7 minutes coming from Manchester Airport, taking Charles Bancroft or taking
Yeah.
Everett Turnpike. So if there's a backup on Everett Turnpike, there's no reason why trucks can't take 3A down. Tingsboro asks for a restriction that the trucks turn left out of the development to force them to go towards the Everett Turnpike instead of down through Tingsboro or out east anywhere, east, south. And let's see, the New Hampshire, I think it was New Hampshire DOT was saying that it is possible to verify the trips generated by adding counters in, like, under the pavement, to kind of almost as like a watchdog on the developer to make sure they're holding true to what their expected traffic impacts are. But as far as developing that area of 102, it actually sounds like the improvements that they're making to the lights and the roads there would benefit Hudson and make everything actually run much smoother than it does today. And if you think about it, Amazon is constantly trying to reduce waste, and one of those major wastes is time waiting. And time waiting at a traffic light, you know, that's, if you're adding an extra 45 minutes to a driver's day, that's a couple of deliveries that they could have done. So I think, I know that they're, you know, that you have to keep in mind that they're going to show their plan in the best light, but I do actually believe that they do want to improve that traffic congestion, mostly because it will go straight to their bottom line. If that makes sense. So that was the biggest thing that I got out of it. But as far as what impacts Litchfield in general was just that as of right now, Manchester Airport not being, you know, a part of the truck stops or anything. So I think we need to see if we can ask them to make sure that it stays that way, or at least it comes back under review.
How can you enforce it if they break it? If they get approved and go live and then they're abusing it, or they become very successful and have to do it,
Yeah.
how can you force them
Well,
to
are we
change?
talking delivery trucks, or are we talking just transportation trucks that bring in the goods, and then they split up, and then they go out and deliver? They're all over the place now. They're like mice. Okay? 'Cause
They're not,
everybody's
it's not
charging.
those trucks that are coming out of that area, out of that development right now. As of right now, it's planned that it's the big box trucks that delivers couches and fridges and things. So
But that's just gonna be a distribution center. Okay, then truck traffic's not gonna be any different. It's not gonna be on Route 3. Right now, we got the post office goes by 6 times a day with a tractor trailer.
Did they ever say what building C was going to be? Did they ever
I
say?
believe they don't have a tenant for that yet. But I was, so why couldn't we ask that is a condition of approval if, like, on plans, we usually put like hours of operation and things like that on the site plans? I guess I don't know where the line is or what you can ask for.
We don't own the road. The state owns.
So Kate?
Yeah.
Can I just ask, are they not anticipating using the Manchester Airport?
That's what they're saying. They're saying as of right now, the airport is not where the trucks are coming from or heading to, according to Amazon.
Well, that's,
That's very strange.
well, it's strange. It's similar to their presentation to us. It sort of lacks credibility. It's hard to believe that they would not at some point find Manchester Airport flying in packages and freight would not be advantageous. It's so close.
Exactly.
And so much easier than going into Logan. I don't know how they can say that with a straight face and try and convince us, you know, maybe for the right now, as they speak right now. I want to know what's going to happen in a year. And the problem is that once they build that thing, once it's done, you know, that's it. I mean, they can't undo it. The damage is done, and we're going to be stuck with this traffic coming down 3A on a regular basis. I just don't believe it. I don't think it's credible.
Exactly. That's why I was wondering if we can put something on there, or if we can ask Hudson to put something on the plan that it is revisited if that Manchester Airport plan changes.
I guess my question is, what would happen if, in that case, if you put it in there and in fact it turned out to be not accurate? What's the remedy? What's the recourse at that point? They already have this operation up and running.
I was thinking, like they would, if they go back and have it reviewed. I guess I don't know if they can't put a restriction on, you know, things turning left out of there. Can they put a restriction? If they can put a restriction on trucks turning left, can they put a restriction on the company from allowing their trucks to go up and down 3A?
Right.
I'm not sure if that's plausible or not.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that it is because 3A is a state route. So I don't think that the Hudson Planning Board could restrict the use of a state route. Certainly that'd be a question though for DOT.
Correct.
Well, I think that's, I mean, they're saying that it's not going to the Manchester airport, but forgive me, I could have sworn that they have trucks coming out of the airport area. They have a whole fleet of them up there now. They moved from Merrimack, from where that Xylas was, all the way up to the airport area. And I see them all the time coming out of the airport area.
That's just a storage area right now. Okay,
So, I mean,
yeah, it's gonna happen.
like Jim said, I mean, it does lack credibility. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I don't know.
Well, like I said, and it's a state road. What authority do we have?
Well, no, I understand that. That's really.
I'm not saying I'm in support of the project. I'm just saying at the very least, we need to ask them about this.
Right.
This piece of it.
That's why we got the Everett Turnpike.
Okay.
We made it bigger.
Well, I mean,
if the board wishes, the board could ask you to talk to the board. So that's a question that we could also put to them directly.
Yep.
To specifically address the airport issue. And if they're not intending to access the airport, why not? And also ask them to address whether or not they would be willing to put a condition on their own plan that would restrict access to the airport.
I have a question of the board then. Jay just said it all in 2-3 sentences. Can he put something together to say that, send a draft out to us? You be happy with that?
Sure. They have answered it a couple of times during the Hudson Planning Board meeting where they say, at this time, there's no plan for Manchester Airport, which I think we all agree doesn't mean much.
Right.
I mean, this is Jay, commenting. I'm not familiar with the plan at that level of intimacy. I believe the reason is because of the nature of the facility and the type of goods are coming are overwhelmingly goods that are coming by truck, not by air. That's the reason why I think they're making that statement. But again, I'm not an expert on that plan.
Okay.
And we also don't know what's going into that C building.
Correct.
So that could change everything.
Yeah.
COVID testing center, more traffic.
is there going to be another meeting? Are they going to continue to address traffic issues, or was this one time that they addressed them at this meeting?
Yes, they ran out of time for public input at the last, I didn't watch the entire meeting. I was about 25 minutes to the end. And they had said, I think at that point it was like 10:30 at night or something. And they said they were going to continue public input. I'd have to find the date. I don't know offhand what the date was for that extended public input.
Yeah, that's what I heard also. I can send that out to everybody if you'd like. They did continue it to their next regular meeting for public input only, so there won't be another presentation on traffic, as I understand it.
So
I do think that Kate's suggestion is a good one, and that we should communicate somehow in writing that they've made certain promises and representations about the airport and 3A, and that, we want to, in some appropriate way, hold them to that. And so that there's a written record of these representations that they've made in an effort to promote this project. And so I'm not sure exactly how we do it, but I think that gets us in a better direction.
Okay.
Back to what I said.
Well, I was just gonna say that if we wanted to do another letter or something to that effect, and maybe Jay, you want to help out with that as well. I mean, or the board can help out as well if they want to, provide their input. We can draft something and send something to Hudson or to the applicant. Just to emphasize, that we're putting it, that this is being put in writing and that you're making these assurances and that, have that record. We can certainly do that. It's not,
But as I understand, what Kate said, the operative phrase is "at this time."
Right.
And so what that means nothing to me.
Right.
It's weasel words that could turn out to be meaningless. So maybe they should provide a little more definition as to what their intentions are, not only now, but, for the next few years, looking at this project as it develops. And as somebody said, maybe Kate said, we have no idea what's going to happen when the other part of that building is used, and what that means and how that's going to impact what happens over there.
So what I'll do is I'll do a draft, and what I can do is I can send it around to all of you. And if you want to incorporate your input into it and then put it together, and then what I will do before I send it out, I will send it to all of you and you can review it and make any recommendations and whatnot. And then we can just send it out. That would work. And obviously Jay can help us with that.
Thank you, Jay.
What about, they might try to go down Albuquerque, down to West Street to get on 102 also, if they leave the airport. So that's another, what did we call that road in our traffic chapter? Albuquerque was a certain type of road.
Albuquerque is a class 5 town road. So the town, one of the recommendations that we did put in the transportation chapter was that we actually make the section of Albuquerque between Hillcrest and 3A a no truck route.
Okay, because we have authority on the town road of Albuquerque, right? If they
We
tried
have
to go
the
down,
authority the whole length of Albuquerque.
right, so if they tried to go down Albuquerque, take a right on whatever Hillcrest down West Street to get to 102.
It's like Page Road, it's a truck road.
Right. But we at least have some authority there, right?
That's right.
They don't want to try the other roads.
So what exactly are we
think-
proposing or asking? I'm confused on this.
Um,
If you go to the airport, don't come through Litchfield?
Yeah.
Minimizing the traffic on the residential part, yeah.
So, I mean,
I am
they can come to
sorry.
Litchfield if they're not going to the airport, though. Is that what we're saying?
There you have the distribution, part of that supply chain going to the airport first to get onto trucks to get to this distribution center.
No, just so I'm clear. It's
Yeah.
that's straightforward, right? Okay.
Well, it's straightforward in that they've made the representation that there's no traffic impact to Litchfield, because they're not going to use the airport. So what we want to get them to do is to provide some verification of that and to put it in writing and to hold them to that.
I think the DOT will probably agree with that because the upgrade for Route 3A with truck traffic will be greater. Okay, so they'll probably agree with that as well. Put them on the highways. That's what the roads are designed for.
So are we getting them to kind of agree that there will be no traffic impact to Litchfield?
Yeah.
Is that?
Basically, that's it.
Well, that's what they're telling us. I mean, essentially that there
They're
isn't
saying
going
there
to
won't
be.
be.
So, but right now we don't believe it, so we want to reinforce it. Right.
Exactly.
But is that what we're reinforcing? Just so I'm clear, we're reinforcing that there's no traffic impact to Litchfield, or are we reinforcing don't come through Litchfield if you use the airport?
Both.
Well, just to clarify though, it's not saying that there's no traffic impact to Litchfield. It's saying that they're not going to be moving freight through Litchfield from the airport. There are two different types of traffic impact from the development. There is traffic impact from moving freight, and then there is also the fact that there are 1,400 employees working there. There could very well be employees at that facility coming from Litchfield. There could be employees from Londonderry that cross through Litchfield.
And that's
So
kind
a
of my,
separate impact.
that nuance is my point. Like we have to be very specific on
Yeah,
what
we're talking about the commercial use of it, not the business, the side, no other use. We're not stopping cars or pickup trucks.
right,
We're just dealing with the corporate side of it.
right. I think.
Yeah.
Are we?
Except when their lawyer came to our board, he said there was no traffic impact, adverse impact to Litchfield. And it was a pretty broad categorical statement. that none of us, I don't think, believed. But he didn't make that distinction between freight. He said no traffic impact to Litchfield. And it sounds like they backed off that. And so I specifically said to them, well, I think you should identify what those impacts, we don't think that there'll be no impact. What are those impacts? And if they've now identified those impacts, I'd like to see that in writing to say, this is what the impacts will be to Litchfield, either because there's more commuter traffic going to be passing through the town or whatever it is. But they should identify that. I haven't seen it. Maybe they've given that out, but I haven't seen that.
So there is a traffic impact study, and to the best of my knowledge, there is no significant traffic impact, perhaps even no measurable traffic impact to Litchfield. That's different than saying there will be no automobiles for anybody ever associated with this facility that will come through Litchfield.
Right. No, I get that.
So there is no significant impact that has been shown. That is true.
All right. Okay. I don't believe it, but I hear that that's what they're representing. I just don't believe it.
Right.
So, but the nuance and the degrees of impact we're dealing with, the absolute of there's no impact, no one believed that, right?
There is always going to be.
So there's always some kind of impact, but that's why I just want to be careful about what we're exactly asking, because I'm not even sure.
We're referring to the commercial side of it. We don't want the tractor trailers picking up supplies out of a freight up at the airport to run it back down here because weather reasons, okay?
Right. So how do we present that?
That's something you're going to
Tractor
draft.
trailers.
In the letter he's going to draft, we're going to have to present it ourselves. We're all going to have to come up with some ideas.
Right.
Tractor trailers and box trucks.
Yep.
Can we say that?
Not really. Because we don't own the road.
Even the Albuquerque Road, the town owns the road?
Albuquerque, we can put all restrictions we want on. We even put restrictions on Page Road on when traffic can go at night. West Road has that now. There's no truck traffic after such and such time at night. During the day there is, but at night, it's been like that for years before Continental got there.
I think the thing, we need to make sure that they can, to say that there is no impact as a blanket statement, that's not true. I mean, there's going to be some sort of impact. The question, I guess, is what is that impact going to be? And we need to, I think in the letter, we need to try to stress to them, we would like to see something to show what that impact is going to be. Because just to say blanket that there's no impact is just not, that just doesn't make sense.
Okay.
But I think we do have to be specific on what we're asking them so we can hold them to it someday. But I think that's a very challenging thing.
Yeah, no, it's
At
not.
this point.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Is the traffic impact study online that we can get?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'll look at it.
The peer reviews of it are online as well.
So Jay, I have a quick question about traffic impact studies in general. What happens if, because most towns require a traffic impact study before a big project. What happens if they find that the traffic impact study wasn't accurate in like 3 or 4 years?
Well, I mean, nothing essentially.
So they can do all they want?
Well, because it's based on projections. So, I mean, a traffic engineer or traffic engineers make projections based on the best information that they have as to what the traffic volumes are going to be, not just from the development, but when you do a traffic impact study, you also have to look at background development. So you have to look at, what's happening in Nashua, what's happening in Litchfield, what is the overall projected increase over time. And then what you do is you look at, it's not just whether there's an increase or not, it's what the impact is of those projected levels of increase to congestion, to various intersections and sections of roadway. And is there a change in level of service? That's what you're typically looking for. And then they propose mitigation measures. So what you were hearing is the improvements that they're proposing, the build condition, would improve traffic flow over existing conditions based on projected traffic from the development and also the background development. And then typically the way Hudson Planning Board is doing it, like any planning board is doing it, is you understand these are estimates and these are projections, so you have them peer reviewed. So in this case, Hudson has a consulting engineering firm that is reviewing these and looking at them and validating them and saying whether or not they believe these assumptions are, accurate and valid, or whether they want changes. And that iteration has been going back and forth. And then DOT has also reviewed it only for the impact to state roads. So DOT isn't looking at the entire universe of impacts. They're only looking at their infrastructure, and they're commenting on to whether they think that the methodologies that were used are reasonable and accurate, whether they agree with the projections. DOT has also gone back and forth with them, asked them for additional information, asked for, various iterations. NRPC also did the same thing. We reviewed it for regional impact, also looked at the assumptions, looked at the estimates, are they reasonable? And then also did independent modeling of their estimates. So at this point, there have been several iterations of the traffic study. There have been a number of revisions based on the comments that have been received from the three basically different peer review entities, as well as the input from the town engineer, and the planning board. And that's all online.
Okay. But then if the applicant goes and makes a change to their operations that directly changes the traffic output from that site, why doesn't that go back for review? Just like we have on a lot of our site plans, we have hours of operation. So if they make a change to those hour of operations, they have to come back for review. So what is our traffic impact studies just not held to that standard?
No, I would say there are two different things. So if they make changes to their operations that impact traffic flow, that could absolutely be a change to the site plan that would require.
That's what I think we need to make sure that is written down, is that if those changes in operations happen, it needs to at the very least, go back to site plan review.
And I think that's a very reasonable request to make to the board.
So are those changes the fact that Amazon is now going to the airport, whereas right now they have no plans to do that? Is it that black and white?
It could be that a request could be made to the Hudson Planning Board that if there is any significant change in operations impacting traffic flow, that is a change to the site plan that would go back to the planning board for review.
Okay, so it seems
that certainly would not be unreasonable because they are making certain assertions, and I also think that it would be reasonable to ask the applicant to commit to that as well.
Okay, so yeah, maybe I wasn't clear before, because that's what I was saying was like the bare minimum that we need to request of Hudson.
So basically, if any of the assumptions or whatever projections they make are invalid, they should go back and do another impact study.
I don't think it's so much as saying that they're invalid. It's that if there's a change in operations that impacts traffic flow, that should go back to the planning board. So if Amazon today says we're not going to go, we're not going to rely on Manchester Airport or access Manchester Airport for freight, if that changes, that should be viewed as a change to the site plan because it's a change in operations. And the reality is that when it comes to this project, of course, there's people who are concerned about their views. They're concerned about what's going to happen directly next to them. They're concerned about lighting and drainage. But the fundamental issue surrounding this project is traffic. And so I think it's reasonable to say that any material change in their operations that impacts traffic flow, that's a change to the site plan. That should go back to the planning board. I think that's a very reasonable request to make.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
maybe we had answered this before. When those traffic studies were done, were they recent with COVID numbers, traffic? Or was?
They were pre-COVID.
They were, okay, good. I feel
Yeah.
better. Okay, good.
Pre-COVID?
Pre-COVID age.
Okay.
Remember that?
Okay. All right, well,
Okay.
a lot of stuff to think about. So we'll put something together and we'll come up as a board and maybe we can present something. How's that?
Yeah, and I'll double check tomorrow what the next meeting is, and I'll get that out to everybody.
Sounds good. Okay, Jay.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Make a motion.
I have nothing else on my agenda for this evening. So if nobody else has anything, I guess we can entertain a motion to.
I'll make a motion.
You make a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Yes, second.
All right, we have a second discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Those opposed, abstain, motion passes 7-0-0. Thanks, guys, for being on the
Have a Merry Christmas. If I don't see
remote tonight.
anybody.
And yeah, we'll see you
Next week.
next meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
2 weeks.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Night, everybody.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.